information about ECDN that you know who is doing the project lead? Elena?
Yes.
Yes.
So I will be leading the project, coordinating the project here in Malta. Also, as through GEMA and as a part of the ministry, I represent, as you know, I work with the Ministry for Social Policy and Children's Rights. And we are discussing this concept and the future of debt advisory in Malta, introduction and future of this. And I would also like to thank my colleagues from the Foundation for Social Welfare Services and the NGOs who are working with us. I know they are here today. We have Sor, we have Jean-Antibes, and also all the people who have joined us. From my part, it is, I will speak maybe a bit more later about this. It is very much a new concept here, something which is very much needed, which we discuss informally, but which we, let's say there is no formal structure. Okay, so we can go on, I guess, from my part, then I will speak later during a minor presentation and then give the voice to the participants.
Okay, thank you, Helena. We are very happy that we find you as our national coordinator, and we are very much impressed by the GEMA performance on the website. So this will be one part of our activity as well, to combine our ideas about financial education and our scheme of financial education with the GEMA information. I mean, looking around in the world, I have to say, the GEMA project is really a very nice one. And that's so we have already something. We are not working from scratch in Malta regarding financial education, but what is really missing so far as we know in Malta is debt advice services and debt counseling. And this is the major subject of our project. I'm the president of European Consumer Debt Network, short abbreviated ECDN. You can see my colleague, Pauline Dujardin. She is the vice president of ECDN, and we are the beneficiary of this EU grant for the provision of better debt advice. ECDN has a long history in fighting over-indebtedness, improving financial education, and looking for a better inclusion of the citizens in each country. And I guess that's the reason why the EU granted this project to us, because we were really engaging since our foundation, which was in 2007, for the as a kind of consumer institution for the better situation of people, and especially if you take into account that due to inflation, due to economic crisis, due to the increase of energy costs, and due to the circumstances in the world by war and other things, people will be more over-indebted in the coming years. This is what I've heard from many of our member countries, and especially I'm a German, I can watch in Germany as well. So the provision of debt advice in each country will be really very important and very needed by the populations. And we as ECDN have already a platform, our website, www.ecdn.eu, which you can visit, and where we have already a lot of material from the past, what we have done in the past. We have published each year a magazine, a kind of scientific and practitioners magazine, where you can find a lot of information about how to do debt advice, how to count over-indebtedness, which kind of approaches for financial education are available within Europe, And we have a LinkedIn account as well, ECDN, European Consumer Debt Network, where you get all the news, like, for example, informations about the last network meetings we have made. And especially important is that our work is regarded as following the Sustainable Development Goals, especially number 1, which is the fight against poverty. Number 4, I guess it's for improving financial education. Then number 10, I guess it's for improving equality within countries and fighting against inequality. And I think it's number 12, responsible lending. So we are following these 4 sustainability goals with our work, and that's important as well. Maybe so far for ECDN as information. And I don't know, well, shall we now do the PEPPI project, or do you want to give some information about the Consumer Credit Directive? Because our project is really a result of all the discussions and the development of the new Consumer Credit Directive. Therefore, I want to hand over the floor to Pauline Dujardin.
Thank you, Dieter. So, as you may know, in June 2021, the Commission proposed a revision of the Consumer Credit Directive. The aim of this revision was to reduce consumer detriment and the risk of taking out loans in a changing market. The idea and the aim was, for example, to increase the scope of the directive. I don't know in Malta, but in France, we have more and more websites which propose buy now, pay later, which are not legally a credit or a credit under 200 euros. So the idea is really to increase the scope of the directive and to take these products in the directive. Increasing to the information level and accessibility consumer to the credit. The idea is to adapt all the informations, legal informations of the credit to the internet, for example, and all the numeric tools. Improving the rules with which credit worthiness is assessed with intention of avoiding the occurrence of over-indebtedness. The idea is really to be more precise of what information the lender has to ask to the potential client. But most important for us and for this PEPPI project, for the first time, this directive proposed to introduce the notion of debt advisor. In the project of the Commission, every member state will be obliged to propose legal debt advisor freely to any consumers in Europe. When you see all the projects, the Commission's project, the Parliament project, and the Council project, in the Parliament project, they really develop what a debt advisor must be. So in the same time, and I think it's not a coincidence, the Commission published a call for proposals for our program PEPPI. The idea is to help 13 countries in which debt advice services are not available or remain in construction to propose some debt advice. So this PEPPI includes Malta, and that's why we are today. I just wanted to add this night, I think at 3 or 4, the negotiations between the Council, the Parliament, and the Commission are finished. So we will have normally in a few days the final project of this revision of the directive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this actual and information about the Consumer Credit Directive. That's really a very important step forward. And you are all, I guess you are always for a long time already nervous to getting more information about the PEPPI project, what's all about. And I will Archibald show our slides now for the PEPPI, or shall we do it, or shall Pauline, can you?
I can do it if you want.
Yes.
I think you can do it. Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
Then please upload. We have
not a problem.
make a brief summary
Mm.
of the PEPPI project. And as I said, it's a project which is done in 13 countries.
Are you seeing the
Yeah,
PowerPoint?
we can see it. Yeah, we are from ECDN, a team from ECDN. It's a project leader. I'm the one who is mainly responsible. All the burden is on my shoulder, but I'm happy to bear it. Pauline is a big support, and other members of the staff like Gwen Harris from MAPS in Ireland and Eva Krug from SCAF in Poland are very supportive as well and have taken over different obligation within this project. We have looked, not so fast. We have looked in each of these participating countries for a national coordinator, and why these countries have been identified by Eurofound, which is a organization within the European Union as well, and they have identified these countries that they have very not very developed debt advice services or no debt advice services at all. And we have now 18 months from today on, it's only 13 months to improve that, to develop debt advice services, and especially to develop a network of stakeholders in these countries. As you will see later on in this presentation, there are several approaches how to do the debt advice services within one country. And mostly important is that many stakeholders, that means banks, insurances, ministries, NGOs, welfare organizations, consumer protection organizations, are working together, even collectors and executors work together to finance and fund debt advice and to support it, because everybody of these institutions and organizations I mentioned profit from debt advice. We know by our scientific studies that each euro you invest in debt advice service gives you a return of investment of at least €5. So by bringing people into employment, people are less ill, people don't take less social support money. So this is really a great investment you can do, and your society and your country will profit for sure of doing this. Next slide, please. This is the main process we are following during this project. So the first thing we try to do, and this is what we are doing today, to build this network of stakeholders, and then later on, in a later phase of the project, really a network of debt advice services in some countries, like in Ireland, in Germany, in Austria. We have so-called umbrella organizations where all the working debt advice services are together in a kind of professional organization. Now, Malta is a smaller country in comparison to Germany or France, for example, by population. not by importance, but by population. And so I guess you will not have so many debt advice services in your country, or don't need so much debt advice services in your country. We have calculated once in Germany that for 40,000 inhabitants, we need one debt advice service with 2 full-time advisors and one back office administrative person. So you just can calculate, if you take the population of Malta, how many debt advice you would need to be perfectly situated. And then the next thing is what we are doing. It's an European knowledge platform. We improve our website and that it's a kind of archive, library, academy for everybody from all over Europe who can visit this website and who can get all the available information about debt advice, financial education, debt regulation, different laws in different countries, like different insolvency laws, etc. And at the end, we are just looking for a university that will be certified visitors or students of this academy we will have in this debt advice, so that they can get a kind of certification as approved debt counselor or debt advisor in the future. Then, as I said, some countries have already kind of national consumer websites for financial education, as you have in Malta with GEMA. Some others don't have. We help the existing one, sorry, and develop for the ones who don't have any website with the content for financial education. So this should be an easily accessible website, so that with tools, so that every person who has financial problems can really visit this and already get a first information how him can be helped or what he should do, and especially with addresses of debt advice services. And in the second part of the project, which will be starting in January already, are webinars by our experts. We have a group of international experts who are really very experienced in the field of psychosocial advice, of financing of a debt advice service, of how to do economic advice, about the organization of a debt advice service, and which kind of legal background has to be there to give legal advice to the people. And if this is not enough, then we can arrange kind of peer-to-peer meetings, coaching between an expert and somebody of you who wants to get more and deeper information. Next slide, please. Yeah, here I think I can rush through these slides because it's more or less in detail what I already said. We have this platform. We will develop this academy. Yeah, Pauline.
Yes. So next slide.
Yeah. Okay, and this is, for continuous professional development. And then we have the webinars. They are already dated by and filled with content. Here you can see, we have 9 webinars, which you can select which one you will attend. The yellow marked ones are the presenters of the different subjects within these webinars. And I think we plan to start with the first one, like something at around 16th of January. And this will be short webinars, so that your attention will still be high, because we think of half an hour, and then we will have 50 minutes for questions and answers or even discussions. And this will be kind of follow-up, and they will be recorded as well. So if somebody couldn't attend the direct meeting, he has a chance to have a look at it later on. So we will put these webinars on our website, on the platform as well. Next slide, please. The consumer website, as said already, it's mainly for the getting a better resilience of consumers. You know that the term of resilience, financial resilience, is a very important term which is used now by the OECD as well and put forward. And this is like in health related matters, the resilience. We want to make people more resilient to life risk, life events on one side, on to advertising of the financial industry as well, because we learned, I don't know whether it's the same in Malta, but we learned from other countries that not all banks do a kind what we say responsible lending. So some banks lend loans to people which really couldn't, you can see it in advance, but if you would have done a right credit assessment, you would know they cannot pay it back in the way they contract to pay it back. And that's so we will give help on these websites as well to the people, how that they know maybe I have just 20% of my available income should be for the payment back of a loan and not more. Thank you. No, go ahead. Next one. Yeah, and our national network meetings like today, we will have 4 meetings, or we plan to have 4 meetings in some for each country, and like from quarter to quarter of a year, as we plan, or it's quite sure that will have our next international conference at the end of March in Malta, thanks to the support of Helena, who has helped us to find the right location. And we will have our General Assembly. It's not just that we are doing the conference, but we will have our General Assembly as well from our organization in Malta. And there we could combine it with the next network meeting for you, and you are already now invited to attend the conference. The conference will be cost-free, so it will. We don't ask for any kind of fee for participation, so I think this makes it even more attractive and interesting for you. Next slide, please. Okay, this is for more or less the main frame of the whole project. And as I said, we have different models, and therefore we would like to present the models to you. Or maybe if you have any questions in between, then we can answer questions, but if not, we just would go ahead with our presentation. Okay.
So, Dieter, I take the floor for the French model,
Yeah,
if it's okay for you.
Please do it.
So, as Dieter said, I'm the vice president of ECDN, but I'm the legal counselor of CRISIS, which is an NGO in French. So I will explain you how we work and how we are funded. So just to explain, in France, it's early 90s that the over-indebtedness emerged as a social phenomenon. So the first insolvency law was created in the 90s. Most important for us and for debt advice, and I speak for France and not for CRISIS, I will go on CRISIS after. In 2019, the French government decided to experiment a label, the PCB, so Budget Advice Spot, destined to NGOs and aiming to help people with their financial problems. In 1992, Cresus was created, so my NGO, to help 22 cross-border workers who were struck by the economic crisis in Germany. It's Cresus Alsace. It was one association. In 2004, we decided to create a network of Cresus associations, which are independent, and we have today 29 associations on the French territory. In 2008, and I will speak more about this association, we created the Association for the Cresus Foundation. And the idea was really to prevent the financial exclusion by creating a nationwide budgetary support platform, innovation in the budgetary and financial education field. So this association was created to cooperate with other institutional actors in favor of a more inclusive society. So this association decided to work with companies such as banks or credit establishments, which creates partnerships. The idea is that this partner has to detect vulnerable customers and they transfer the file of this fragile client to the Cresus Foundation, and the Cresus Foundation will help the client to deal with their debt. They can do some budgetary support, but they can, and it's important, renegotiate the credit. So we discovered that the detection by the money lenders of people experiencing a financial fragility allows Cresus to help people before their over-indebtedness. And we can add with more flexibility regarding the available solutions, because, you know, we always have more choice and more possibilities when people are not already on the over-indebtedness. And we discovered too that the development of an alliance between the economic and the social spheres, which in France doesn't exist, provides exceptional results in the social, economic, and financial households recovery. So that's the services of the Cresus Foundation. You can read it later, but the idea is really to make a budget analysis and then making appropriate recommendation and then support people from 1 month to 7 years. The idea is that the partners, the banks, and the credit establishment which work with us, they pay to help their clients. But it's really important to say that when we act with the client, the bank will not know what we do. So we have this confidentiality, and I think it's a condition to help people because we are not the bank. So the Cresus Foundation employed 10 former bankers as employees to help people in all the national territory. Dieter, can I let you present the Irish model, or perhaps there is already some question about the French model?
Thank you, Pauline. As you may have noticed, the French model has a very close link to the bank industry. And this is really special for the French model. The Irish model is different because the Irish model is a kind of holistic model and it's completely funded by the government. So, and for quite a long time. It started like in France, so this in the early 90s of the last century seemed to be kind of crisis time, so that in many countries the debt advice services were really put forward on the agendas. And so it started in Ireland as well with kind of pilot companies just to look what works best, because there was not many international experience or comparisons to other countries at that times. And then it developed year by year until 2018. They had already 51 local companies and two general organizations which are somehow managing the 51 independent local companies like kind of supervisors. And then the whole system was restructured, and they reduced like the national the county organizations. They still had the two national companies, but then 8 regional companies with 60 offices, and they cover the whole area of Ireland. Next one, please. The MAPS has a mission statement, formulated mission statement, and this is in short the provision of a free, cost-free, confidential, so privacy of people is regarded and taken into account, and independent, community and rights-based money advice and budget services, which is implemented and put in kind of for a community. It's not outside the community policy and development, but it's really inside the community development. Next slide, please. Yeah, the objectives are partnership. Everything is done a bit in a form of, or in a way of partnership between the clients and the advisors. It's locally organized, so it's belonging to community development, which is very important at the equal access. So this is different from other countries, like different from Germany. In Germany, you can have only access to adapted advice services in your hometown or in your home area. You cannot go, like if you are living in Berlin, you cannot use adapted advice service in Munich. But in Ireland, if you are living in Cork, you can go to adapted advice service in Dublin. So they don't have any kind of limitations, which is very important, because sometimes people don't want to go to the debt advice service in their closer area because they think, and that's, you know, this is human, that gossiping is going, and maybe even the advisors knows you from school and so on. So this can be a sensitive situation. And MAPS has the approach really to influence policy change, because they have very close information about the situation of people. By this, they can try to influence politicians and political development. Next slide, please. Yeah, we had already heard about the national structure. It's regional companies which are led by a regional manager, and they have each office has a voluntary board of directors, and the board is consisted by different professions. So there are bankers, collectors, church people, and others in the board. And then they have a special service for the travelers. There's quite a big traveler community in Ireland. In other countries, the travelers are called gypsies or tsigans. So they look for them in a special way. And in the Eastern European countries, it's the Roma population. So they have, for example, in Slovakia, they have a special service or NGO going to the Roma people, which are a community for themselves. Next slide, please. Yeah, MAPS has 3 ways of offers of products. The first one is the so-called voluntary debt solution. Voluntary is that they try to negotiate between client and creditor, between debtor and creditor, to find an out-of-court solution. This is very much favorized in Slovakia, for example, in the new model. And then they have the statutory debt solution. You have to consider that Ireland just in 2012 had the first insolvency law before people really could go into prison when they didn't pay their debt. So it was, very rigid, very sin oriented, uh, debt and sin, and they have a special service for mortgage people who are in danger to lose their home or their house, get a special advice, because this is a different situation compared to a consumer credit you take, or consumer credit debts. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay, this is again, it's long history and so on. So now we are going to the German debt advice model. The German debt advice model is different in so far that it's organized by the so-called subsidiary principle. As you know, Germany has 16 independent states. We are a federal republic. So each state in Germany has its own legislation, its own, procedures. And it's not like in France, where everything is centralized to Paris. So Paris is giving all the directives to everybody else. So in Germany, we have Berlin, but Berlin cannot do a lot without the support of like Bavaria or Baden-Württemberg or North Rhine-Westphalia. So that's and within this system, we have since 100 years a very strong welfare organizational support. So we have all these welfare organizations like Caritas from the Catholic Church, Diaconia from the Protestant Church. We have from the labor area, we have the labor welfare organization called AVO. We have the Red Cross, which is involved, and we have the consumer protection agencies, which are there. And by the subsidiary principle, they solve all the works or provide with services which the government and even the state government or the federal government thinks they can do it better as it's done by state. But you always have to take into account that Germany has now 83 million people as inhabitants, and so it's easier to organize things in a locally, than to do it by central. And we have two important laws. The one is the insolvency law, which was already introduced in 1999, which is like the last way out for a fresh start. We had a so-called well-behavior period where clients had to give most of the money they earned to a trustee, and the trustee then distributed the money to the creditors. And we have a new social welfare regulation in 2005 with two very important social law books, number 2 and number 12. And within this paragraph, within the social law book, define how people in an over-indebted situation can be helped, and how and that's very important, how the service can be funded by social law money to do this. Next slide, please. Yeah, here you can see a little bit of history. You can see that the first debt advice services was already started in 1977, and we had this kind of umbrella network organization of all debt advice services in 1986. Already in 1996, after the unification, we had already 859 debt counseling services in Germany. And then in this year, actually, we have 1,400 debt counseling services. So we have many, many services in each major city, and in each county. We have a debt advice service, but this sounds great. This sounds perfect. But if you look into it, you have to say that 50% of these debt counseling services have just one full-time employee, and no real back office, or like a part-time back office and nothing else. And this is something which is not sufficient for a really good provision of debt advice, and it means, or debt counseling, and it means that some clients have really waiting times of 3 to 6 months before they get access to the service, because the workload of these services is too high that they really can react like in a kind of urgency or emergency matter. Though it's intended that debt advice and debt counseling services act as a kind of emergency service. If the executor is before the door, or the risk of losing your home is very high. Next slide, please. Yeah, we have two, or more or less three approaches. We have the specialized, holistic, interdisciplinary approach, mainly for the out-of-court regulation. And then we have the very strict and regulated insolvency procedure. And then we have additionally so-called integrated debt services. So we have a lot of other social system services in Germany, like for addiction, for family advice, and so on. And if they notice that there is a debt problem, then either they try to solve that debt problem by themselves, or they send the people to a specialized debt advice service. Next slide, please. What is done in these debt advice, debt counseling services is firstly economic crisis intervention, then financial and budget analysis, household planning. They are giving financial advice. They are giving advice how to get money from the social law system, because many clients don't know that they have, the right to get some money from the social system because of the specific situation. And they do, or they try to do psychosocial support, because many over-indebted people have problems with depression, with shame, with illnesses, with social exclusion, and so on. And so the debt advisors should treat that as well. In Germany, it's mainly done by social workers. We don't have a kind of professional university training for debt advisor. That's why we have, as ECDN, the idea to offer a kind of certificate by our international organizations to debt people who want to study or get trained as debt advisor all over Europe. So in Germany, it's mainly done by social workers. It's 95% of them are social workers, have a bachelor in social work, and then they do post examination studies, which are offered by some of the welfare organizations. And additionally, we have a lot of part-time lawyers, bankers, psychologists, which are related to a special debt advice service. Next slide, please. This was the German model, and now we are coming to the last model. It's the Slovak debt advice model, which is very new. the Slovak people had the chance to study all the existing debt advice and debt counseling approaches, and they tried to took out the best of all these different approaches. They had the great advantage that their ministry organized to get EU money for developing the debt advice services, and on the other hand, that one ministry, the Ministry for Social Affairs and Family, especially the minister, was very much engaged in putting forward the whole subject, in his country. And I had the pleasure to give, together with the ministry Kreinak, last October a press conference, because then the last debt advice services was opened, and now they have 46 debt counseling, debt advice services all over Slovakia, and they have developed this within 1.5 years. So this is really very impressive what they have done. And besides that, and the idea of the Slovak community is that they try to negotiate between debtors and creditors so that they don't have to go for a court solution. Their idea is that it's much better for both parties, for both sides, to do it out of court in an amicable solution, because their idea is, which can be discussed, that over-indebted people have the tendency, they just get a fresh start and they haven't learned that much, and then the carousel or the round door goes again, and they are getting into debt again. But on the other hand, they say as well that the Slovak population has an incredible low level of financial education, which was so we had just last week, we had our first network meeting in Slovakia, and this was very surprising for me that like the Slovak people really are below average in the European community according to their level of financial education. And this could mean that it's really better to have this holistic approach, which they have of like lawyers, economists, and psychologists, and all the three professions are really dealing with one client. This is a luxurious model. I mean, we would have that we would like to have this in Germany as well, but it's, due to financing and persons, it has not been possible so far. So that's a very luxurious situation, but because of the low level of financial education, it's needed for the Slovak population. If people are using the insolvency law on trying to get a court solution, then there are legal aid centers run by the Ministry of Justice, and they do as well, free of charge, all the procedural necessity for going into insolvency law procedure. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then there are, other organizations like consumers, executors, various NGOs and social services and municipalities, which support in a way debtors as well in Slovakia. Next slide, please. So again, the most important fact is that Slovakia, or the Slovak model, has taken into account the three important elements which are related to precarious financial situations or over-indebtedness. So they said there is a legal issue, there is an economic issue, and there's a social and psychological issue. And because we identified these three different issues, we have to offer three solutions. We have to offer legal advice, we have to offer economic advice, and we have to offer psychological advice. And this next slide, please. This is okay. This is a little bit of history. We skip that. And you now go back, please, Pauline. Just the outlook for the future, because we are interested in sustainable solutions. And as you can see, the Slovak model is looking for a sustainable solution as well. It's not just if our project is over, which will be in December 2023, then the services have to close. No, they have already asked for another EU funds for the period to 2026, and then as beginning with 2027, the operation shall be completely funded by the government. So I think this is a very good, approach to build it up. The startups, the debt advice services startups, you can say, with public money by the EU, and then to finance it and they have the intention that there will be a law in the Slovak legislation that will really say that the government has to provide this kind of debt advice. Next slide, please. And what they arranged, and this I think it's very good. They have really done it in a very good, no, not some very good way, because there are many of the representatives of these different organizations attended the first national network meeting in Slovakia. So there's though the interest might be different or maybe even contrary of the single associations, they are discussing together, they are working together, and you can see here it's like NGOs and consumer protection organizations and bankers and executors and collectors, and so they all try to work together to help and support the people. And this is the network we have in mind for each country, according to the special needs or special situations in each country, and that they are supporting, then the actual working debt advice and debt counseling services. Okay, that's it. Yeah, this is some other organizations which are involved as well. And yeah, we have some more slides. Just 2 more slides. And I can tell it's like the professional organization. So the professionalism in Slovakia is quite high. They ask for a master degree, either in law, economy, or psychology, and for 3 years of experience, of professional experience. And so all their staff have to have these qualifications, and this is a very high level. So I think it's not always, cannot always be reached, but yeah. Thank you very much for your attention. I know it's a lot of content, a lot of information, but we are here for answering your questions, which maybe have arisen after what we said. Thank you very much. So the floor is yours, Helena. You are the moderator.
No, I think, Mr. Fürsti, do you have any questions? No?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for a very engaging presentation. But I have a problem. Am I understanding well that this is legal debt? People getting into debt because they borrow too much on their credit card, or have a car loan, have a house loan, and so on? That's the first part of the question.
Shall I answer it immediately?
Yes, please.
So this is a matter of definition. So by the European Union, the definition is of over-indebtedness is, in short, a person is over-indebted who cannot pay his obligation within a period of 3 months and has no assets to, to take his assets for paying these obligations. And this can even mean private loans. If you went to a friend or a family member and you got 10,000 of euros from him and you cannot pay him. So this will be, that's the definition of it. And
Yeah,
they have
okay.
all access to the services.
Okay, yeah, because our banks in Malta are very prudent, and they will not lend you anything which leads you to being roughly the equivalent of 25% of your take-home pay. So over there, I think as a country we're covered. What really is a problem is illegal debt, usury. And when you work in our line of operations, we work with the most vulnerable people on the island. Not only we as the National Social Service of Malta, whereas you were saying our social workers and social welfare professionals have been trained by Helena and her team with Gemma and so on, and they do give advice on budgeting and they've been to other programs and so on. But we do know that there is a reality which isn't spoken about enough of people who are victims of usury. People who borrow privately 1,000 euros and are expected to pay it with full interest, and within a month it becomes 5,000. There was a service which was an initiative between Caritas and our ministry, began 20 years ago, but it's fizzled out, unfortunately. So definitely we are interested in PEPPI, and we are committed that our client base, they do need a lot of help, I would say, with budgeting and staying out of debt, and not go to the loan sharks. And that happens most of the time, prioritizing what they use their money for. Like I remember, I think it was Christmas 2014 or 15, where we had to do a care order on a single mother with 4 or 5 kids. And then, when I asked for a lot of information, why did we do it all at one go and so on? She told us because, I want my kids to be like other kids, and she was living on social services, but she bought her a smartphone, which cost about 800 euros. And then she didn't have enough money to buy lunch for them at school. We got to know about it from school. So those situations we can address. The situation which we are not addressing as a country is usury. And I was wondering if you cater for this as well.
Yeah, maybe I answer this. Maybe Pauline want to say something as well. Usury is a big problem in many countries and has been a big problem in Germany as well. And the debt counseling services are used to treat this. So they have either legal advisors, lawyers in their team, or they know enough to see when a case of usury is there, and then they can act. They can help the people. So, as for example, maps in Ireland, you even, and it happened in Germany as well, you even can make it to a public debate. Should there be a cap? And now in Germany, there is a cap, for example, which is still very high. I think it's about 15% of interest rate, which is still incredibly high, but it's not like 20, 30, 50%. So usury, to fight usury is one of our big goals, you know, as well, in general and with the debt advice services. Pauline, want you to add something to this? Or?
Yes, thank you, Dieter. Just really fast. I'm okay with what you said. For us, the cap is a little bit, so it's in function of the middle rate, middle cap of 3 months ago. But I just wanted to add, I'm okay with you, but you have to think, even if lender make responsible lend, we always have to think to people which have a life accident, so an illness or everything which can lead to the over indebtedness. And what we saw today, I speak for France, but I think the situation will be pretty the same in all Europe's. We see now in France more and more over indebted file with just running costs. So no credit, just running cost. With the cost of the energy, for example, we had, just for an example, last week we had something like 50% more people who get to us because they have this energy regularization. So I think we have to take all the situation in account, and yes, that's what I wanted to add.
Same in Germany, for example, the increasing of energy costs put a lot of new people into debt advice services. Yeah. Mr. Pacha, I saw that you raised your hand.
Yes, I would like to continue with the discussion that Mr. Grishti began with. In accordance with him, yes, and the problem of usury in Malta is real, and it is growing as well. We have two voluntary persons with economical background, that they are helping these people to come together and with the client, the one who's suffering usury, and even the person who offered the money with high interests, which are very, very high. And we are trying to help these clients. But as Grishti says, it's never enough. We need more, because this is something that we need to work a lot with. And lately, we are working as well with Gemma, which is helping a lot from the prevention unit, and even in schools to give financial education as well, and even with the counseling and social work unit. I think that this PEPPI project will be very, very helpful, even though that banks give loans and they see that, as Mr. Grishti said, they see that they have enough money to live and to pay the bills and etc. But there are times that they are not that aware or informed or educated how to spend the money. So yes, we see these cases as well. And we think that with this PEPPI project will help us to give them more decent and as well clear information. How can they budget their money, the rest of the money that they have, even after they have paid the loan, the monthly loan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just had, after Joseph, Dieter know me, I just can't bear speaking. But what we will show, I think, too, in the PEPPI project is a different way to do financial education. And for example, here in France, our association developed a game about budget managing. So it's a different way to touch every people, but especially the young people. And we can share all the way we do some financial education.
No, if it's okay, I would put my presentation on the side for now, because they're mentioning a lot of the things that I would like to be mentioned. There are a few more, which I am sure my friends from HBTS and from the NGOs will mention. So for now, I would just like to put the presentation on the side and let the people speak and ask their questions. Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
So practically, Helena, you will be doing your own presentations, and we will be taking the questions.
No, I will leave it
after.
out. I will leave it out, and we can take the questions from now. I have no problem with that. I'd rather
All right.
people talk. Yes.
I will be the last to make my comment. I kindly ask Tonio to make his comment, and then Rhoda, please.
Hi, good morning to all, and many thanks for your presentations. Very big well done. My concern is, I'm from Malta. My concern is twofold, which within this kind of seminar, I think there was nothing mentioned about them, which is business and advertising. Unfortunately, we are in a situation, talking about Malta, where we are having a kind of free country as with regards to gambling shops spreading all over Malta and Gozo. Malta is literally very, very small. And if you set up 2 or 3 shops like that in every district, it's like meters away from each home and domestic home everywhere. I think that is a very big problem for a lot of people, especially the younger generation, but even practically all people, all strata of people, even the elderly, that can find their refuge in and having some time in these shops, which eventually will cause a lot of issues, family issues or individual issues, to cope with life. As regards to advertising, if you see what is happening right now, that World Cup is going on, the Football World Cup. As with regards to Malta, if you have to see a football game, in between this football game, it is inundated with advertising for people to play and gamble on these games. Is it sport or is it business? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think it is tragedy. Thank you.
Mr. Tonio, I don't see
Tonio.
your...
Bonello, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comment. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I mean, many Germans are sad today because of this loss of business and loss of game. But this is a real problem, and I'm a health researcher myself as well in profession, and the gambling addiction, it's regarded as a non-substance addiction in the healthcare field, and this is really a great problem. We would I mean, the debt advice services and debt counseling services are a kind of rehabilitation part. You know, child has fallen down, and we try to get it upright again. But if the services have enough staff or have enough resources, they can do a lot of prevention activities as well. And I think to avoid gambling, you have to do prevention like you do with JAMA, and maybe you can do in these new services in Malta as well. It's very hard to convince Infantino and the FIFA and others, because they have this big cash cow that they don't do advertising in the stadiums. I see it just as you do. It's a very tricky way to get into people's heart and mind, but this is a kind of societal problem, and yeah, but we direct our work to the problems you mentioned as well. But we can just do, kind of preventive activities, enforce preventive activities, and influence policymakers in a way that they take this into account. But I know, due to my work in the alcohol addiction area, there was a initiative in the European Parliament to ban alcohol advertising. And then there was an initiative against that, run by or led by Italian wine farmers, and they succeeded. So, there's the lobby, and if you think like, I guess it's in your country the same, there's a lot of tax income by taxes on alcoholic beverages. Like we have in Germany, I think something like 13 billions, and if I'm right, and for the fight against alcohol addiction, there is an organization, a federal organization, they receive 1 million to fight that. So you see, this is really a political structural problem. Pauline, you want to add something to this?
Two little things. First thing, here in Cresus, we are working with La Française des Jeux, so the organism which make gambling in France. So it could be a way, so they transfer us their problem with gambling addiction. But more general, I wanted to say that I think PEPPI has something to do with how to I'm sorry, I don't have the name in English, but how to defend a change of legislation. I think I can speak for many debt advisor organization. We are doing debt advice for sure. That's our main activity. But with our experiment in this activity in debt advising, we are really an actor of the consumer legislation. So we have many meetings with the Banque de France, with all the economic ministry. So I think that could be a way for the PEPPI project to show at least how we established debt advisor, how we plea, I think that's the name, for change of legislation, because we have the experiment and we can say, I had one beneficiary which was in this situation, and if the legislation was different, we could avoid this problem.
Okay, so Ms. Gorlan, please.
Hello, yes, I'm calling from the Commission for the Rights of Persons with Disability. We have had, over the last few years, a lot more people with disabilities who are entering employment and therefore have money to spend. And they don't necessarily have the financial awareness. In fact, at CRPD, we have run training sessions linked to various banks on the island who have put on training sessions to give information to people with disabilities, and they've always been very, very well attended. So I'm interested in knowing and definitely pointing out to anybody setting up anything in Malta, the need for information to be provided in accessible formats, and also that the people who are running these networks are trained in how to be able to give advice to disabled people, because it requires some additional knowledge beyond having obviously the financial and economic awareness. But I think that with the number of disabled people in Malta who are now getting jobs and getting houses and things like that, it is a service that would definitely need to be accessible for disabled people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garland. This is a very important point you made. And we would thank you really very much for this. We would look for an expert in this field to make a webinar on it. And maybe even if you like to give a webinar, you are really heartily invited to do so.
I think we would be very happy to give any assistance that we can, because this is becoming a bigger issue now in Malta amongst disabled people. So yes, any assistance that we can provide, we would be happy to help.
Thank you very much. Maybe Helena can forward to us your email address and your contact things, and
Thank you.
We really highly appreciate that, you know, because this is a very specific but very important problem, and you need specific knowledge about it. And there are not so many people who have this specific knowledge. So I'm very happy if we can include you in our expert team. Thank you very much.
So Melanie, please. Sound.
Sorry. Hi, good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Melanie from the St. Jean Antit Foundation, a foundation that supports vulnerable individuals and families that are at risk of sliding into poverty and social exclusion. So going in line with what Mr. Gristri said, unfortunately in Malta, we see that we have a limited access, individual persons have limited access to credit. So that is why most probably they resort to loan sharks. There is no micro loan systems or community banks. So that's one issue that it would lead a person to resort to a loan shark. I don't know whether in other countries where debt advice services are provided, access to credit is also provided. Unfortunately, another thing is that preventive measures lack a bit. There are no early interventions, so people most probably have already accumulated a lot of bills and are over-indebted before they seek support. Another thing is about the debt settlement procedures that unfortunately most of the time are a one-size-fits-all. So if, for example, with the energy company, you have a 600 overdue bill and a 5,000 overdue bill, most of the time there is a lack of flexibility with regards to repayment terms, and therefore a person with the amount that they have to pay, the standard of living that they will be able to afford is not assured. Apart from that, also, there are no personal insolvency legislation in Malta. So I think that would be one of the first things that needs to be addressed to be able to support over-indebted individuals and households. Thank you, and sorry for the lack of voice, but I'm a bit sick.
Thank you very much, Ms. Piskipo. That's a very important point you address as well. Therefore, it would be good to include in the network the bankers and the utility providers and the energy enterprises and the Ministry of Justice. Because of the private insolvency law, there are usually the insolvency laws have a part of private insolvency in many countries. So if this is not the case in Malta, it should be, changed. It should be done. And therefore, if the stakeholders in your network get all these informations, then you can negotiate or you can develop new approaches. For example, I don't know whether you said there are no communal banks or community banks. I mean, we know that in the Netherlands, they have a perfect system of this kinds of communal banks. And one of the communal banks of the Netherlands are members of our organization, and we could invite somebody from them really to present the approach they have and the success which they have. And this would be like as an information. I mean, we can always provide a lot of information, but the acting has to be done by you and the network. We just can provide you with everything we know about it, about the problem and problem solutions, which is even more important. And then you have to act. And yeah, thank you.
I think we have another question. Yes, Ms. Muscat Camilleri.
Hi, good morning, Francesca. I'm here representing the Ministry for Active Aging. So here we're speaking of another vulnerable group which will definitely benefit from this initiative. These might be people who might not have a loan or a house loan, who might have paid this off or and own their house, but there's this transition from being fully employed to now living on a pension and trying to keep the same hobbies, trying to keep the same lifestyle. So even there's the need for a learning experience, because previously Tonio, I believe, mentioned the marketing towards gambling shops and gambling whatever. Prior to that, we always had the lottery culture. So if it's not gambling on football or what have you, we've always had the national lottery culture and spending an amount of money weekly to try our luck in winning the national lottery. So what I ask of you, Helena, we've just launched the national strategy up to 2030 for active aging, and we've touched upon this subject and the need to educate people, and especially those elderly who are transitioning from full employment to pension. And so we might get back to you to try and reach some of the objectives which are in the strategy. And please do not forget this sector whenever you're doing cross-ministry work. Please do keep us in mind. I think that's all from my end. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further questions, please? No? Yes? Or, okay, you haven't lowered your hand. I think this is it from us, unless there are any further questions. Yes, so we will add more people to the network. To be fair, we have sent to a number of high-ranking upper management, so maybe this wasn't followed through by them. I know that they do receive a lot of emails, but this first session will be very useful to getting more people on board. So that is what I am envisaging. And we can get more people, especially by the second one. We shall have a bit of it was a very, very useful, even from me, where I had some background information. It was a very useful session for me. I thank you, Dieter, for inviting us on to take on this project. And I am sure that we will get an even stronger response next time. And we shall build also on what we have learned and what we have shared today.
Thank you very much, Helena. Thank you again that you are our national coordinator. I have to congratulate you because you counted 33 participants. This is for Malta, regarding the size of Malta. This is a tremendously good result for the participants. And we got a lot of insight of the Maltese situation concerning the usury, the gambling, the disabled people, and so on. So we will consider that in our future work. And so thank you all the discussants for their comments on it. So I think too, this was a really good meeting. So thank you from our side.
Thank you very much. So shall we be sending, I think, this presentation? I don't know whether we will be able to send this detail because I think it was we have the separate ones. We can send that, or is this an entire one?
We have
an entire one.
We have an entire one, so
I can send it to you just now, no problem.
Okay, thank you. So we can distribute it among participants. I'm sure they would be very interested, so they can go on because it was very interesting material, but there was a lot. And thank you once again.
Thank you. Have a good time and enjoy your Christmas time.
Yeah, same to you. We'll probably speak again before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.